Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Lyniate Envoy virtual launch party. I am Michelle Blackmer. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Lyniate, and I'm joined today by two colleagues who will introduce themselves in a moment. And I'm looking forward to having a very interactive session with you, which brings me to a couple of housekeeping points that I want to cover or remind you about. You are muted. All attendees are in listen-only mode. And you'll see a questions box on the right-hand side of the screen. So throughout the webinar, at any time, if you have questions, please post them there, and I will either interject them in real time into the conversation, or we'll pick them up at the end. And I know everyone is always curious, is this being recorded? It is, and we will send you a copy of the recording within 24 hours after the webinar. Just double check my notes here. All right, and if you have any questions that we don't cover today or that come up for you after the webinar, you can email us at lyniateenvoy@lyniate.com or just visit our website and contact us or chat with us. All right, let's dive in. Jeremy, thanks. Over to you.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, I'm Jeremy Pierotti. Glad to be here. I've spent more than 2 decades of my career working in health IT now, working mostly with providers, but also with payers. I support the Cloud Solutions team here at Lyniate, and I joined Lyniate earlier this year when Lyniate acquired Datica's integration business. So thanks for having me.
I like your outfit too, Jeremy. I like that you really took the virtual launch party theme seriously. Hopefully our attendees did.
This blazer hasn't gotten a lot of love in the last year and a half, so I wanted to break it out.
Perfect, and it still fits. Great.
You're looking great, Jeremy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Scott Galbari. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Lyniate, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about our new offering, Envoy, that we're going to highlight today. But eager to dig in with you. Jeremy, you look great in your blazer with the tie-dye. Michelle's looking great. Everything is possible. So let's get this going. So I started my career in healthcare IT over 20 years ago. And when I started my career, I started working on solutions that had interoperability at its core. And at that time, we thought we were pretty smart, and we thought we could solve healthcare interoperability. And I look back on that time now, over 20-some years later, and you realize that this domain space, this problem statement, just continues to get harder, and there's a lot more problems to solve yet. Even though there's been great breakthroughs, great progress in technology standards, there's still a lot of complexity to be solved. And so we believe that there's a real challenge here for organizations, healthcare IT vendors who are trying to create applications to bring to market in the healthcare space. So when I think back, once again, it used to be the case if you're a healthcare IT company and you were going to go and try to create an application, you had a particular application that you thought would be very beneficial for a particular workflow within the healthcare ecosystem. You would start by creating this really cool application, and you would be demoing it and showing it, and you realize, oh, in order for it to actually work, I got to get data from different systems out there. And oh yeah, there's that aspect of I got to send data to other people in this ecosystem. And over time, healthcare IT companies started to create that mechanism. And I remember when every healthcare IT organization, really focused on their marketing around, well, we can connect to this system, we can connect to these 5 systems, we can connect, this large magnitude of different systems out there. And the reality is, like that time has changed. Michelle, you probably remember, I mean, you've been in marketing a long time, you probably remember, everyone focusing on, I can connect to this system, right?
Absolutely. I started my career connecting radiology information systems and then moved into electronic medical record, and it's always been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and it's gone now from where it used to be you try to highlight your ability to connect to lots of different systems, to now it's just an expectation. Everyone assumes that if you have a product, if you have a solution, that you're delivering to the market, that you are going to work with all of the different vendors and all of the different solutions out there. So it's no longer a, hey, I can differentiate by saying I can connect to different systems. It's a must-have for healthcare IT vendors. Additionally, when you think about this problem statement, if you're a healthcare IT vendor and you're trying to create a software application, you're looking at the reality of there's lots of different systems, lots of different people involved, lots of different workflows involved, and this ends up, sending information in lots of different directions. And over time, integration engines provided an ability for organizations to simplify this quite a bit by centralizing integration between different systems to eliminate these point-to-point connections. And you then could manage, administer, and handle all of your connections and logic through a centralized location. However, you still had to really understand all of the details, right? You had to understand all the different storage formats, the different data formats. You had to understand the different protocols being used. You had to keep on top of standards. The good news is standards continue to evolve and get better. We've seen lots of great improvements on the standards front over time. However, with that just means that there's a lot more systems out there that have lots of different variations in how they've deployed their solutions and their interfacing using these different standards. And so if you're a developer or anybody inside a healthcare IT organization, you end up kind of holding your head thinking, gosh, this is a pretty big problem to try to understand the wide complexity of different systems and workflows you need to facilitate with your application. Additionally, as more and more systems have gone digital, unfortunately, cybersecurity has become paramount for every organization. And so when we think about cybersecurity, I mean, we are in healthcare, and there is obviously a much higher propensity to focus on protecting patient information, ensuring that we're meeting privacy regulations, and ensuring that data stays secure, both when it's being stored or when it's in transit. And there isn't a day that goes by that we don't see report about a particular cyber attack in our industry. Within healthcare, we see so many provider organizations getting hit with these cyber security attacks. And we spend as an organization, just like any other healthcare IT organization, just like any provider, any business quite honestly spends a lot of time and energy trying to ensure that you have secure systems to protect the data that's in there. But that's not trivial, right? And when you combine that together with all the different systems you have to connect with, and the fact that you used to have data connections, always located within a particular network, when you start to look at the new ONC and CMS rulings where you have to have more open access to information, you now enable more entryways into and out of your network and where that information is stored. And so, when you think of cybersecurity, this problem just continues to get larger and bigger because your landscape becomes much larger as well. So when you think of all these, you put all these together, you may feel, as a healthcare IT vendor, and you're trying to build an application, you may feel like you're stuck in the mud because you just don't know where to head, right? I mean, you have all of these different cybersecurity things you need to consider. You have all of these different systems, workflows, different stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem. You have different standards, different data formats, different versions of standards, and it's really hard to make traction. You know that you have a solution that's going to help somebody in the healthcare ecosystem. You may help with a clinical use case, you may help with a financial use case, you may help with an operational use case, but you find that you start spinning really aggressively. And in this picture, I really like this picture because you kind of see that this truck's really stuck in the mud, but you also see steam come out of the engine. That's probably how a lot of developers and business leaders in healthcare IT companies feel, because they know they have a solution. They've heard customers say, I want this solution, but there's so many barriers to get over to get your solution implemented into any healthcare ecosystem. Jeremy, I venture, I'm looking at you and looking at the guy in the truck, and I'm a little bit nervous that you may have been the guy that thought this is a great idea to drive in his mud pit, eh?
That's definitely me, and those are my friends in the background laughing at me for sure.
Well, We're glad you made it here today, Jeremy. The other thing that I'd highlight, you get the impression, you know, as a healthcare IT vendor, that it's hard to get your application off the ground, and you're trying to go faster than you're able to. And on top of this, you know, all the things that I just highlighted about the knowledge that you need to have in your organization around cybersecurity and around interoperability and data standards, you essentially have to get staff in order to have that expertise in your organization. And we know, talking with customers today, there is a really difficult time getting the right skill sets into an organization. And a lot of times we see companies who end up having one person that maybe understands their cybersecurity needs, one person that understands their interoperability needs, and that just doesn't allow them the ability to have the necessary business continuity and coverage that they need. And they struggle to go and find the talent to bring into the organization. And so we do see a lot of companies over time who have come to us and asked us, hey, you guys have been in healthcare IT. You obviously have solutions that solve interoperability problems in a secure way. Well, what if you helped us with that a little bit more? And historically, we did a lot of staff augmentation to do that. So we would actually go and provide customers with some of our skilled resources that really focus exclusively on healthcare interoperability and solving those sorts of problems. And we would give them, you know, as a mechanism to augment staffing needs when customers needed that. And we've seen that, you know, across the board in all different types of customers, from healthcare IT companies to providers. And so we also see that as a common thread and a challenge that healthcare IT vendors face. So what we decided to do, and what we had announced, many of you probably saw the announcement, hence why you joined this webinar today, is that we launched a new solution offering called Envoy. And Envoy is a solution where we essentially try to solve all of the problems I highlighted before for our customers. Particularly, when you think of a solution like our integration engines, we enable organizations to build their interoperability workflows, their integration that they need between different systems. But you need to have all that expertise around security, and all that expertise around the data, and all that expertise around the different standards and formats and translations. And with Envoy, we essentially take all of that responsibility on for our customers. And so in this model, you can rely on Lyniate's expertise and knowledge to secure the data, both in transit, as I was highlighting, and in storage. And you can also leverage Lyniate to essentially speed up your ability to deliver your solutions to market much quicker, because inevitably, when you're trying to create these integrations, you're going to run into challenges. I mean, we over 20 plus years of developing healthcare IT interoperability solutions recognize and know all of the nuances that you're going to run into, and we can help you to avoid those common pitfalls. I think what we'd share with you is an analogy to explain this a little bit better. You know, each of you as healthcare IT vendors have a special application where you want to focus your time and attention on where you're going to differentiate and the value proposition you're delivering to your customers. And we want to help you to be able to focus on that and not focus on some of these other problems where you might not have that expertise. It's kind of like if you're a world-class tennis player, you're going to be really good at playing tennis, but you're going to rely on individuals to string your racket and to make sure that your equipment is ready to go, so you can focus on the things that help you to win in your sport. So when you play that out in this area, we think Lyniate Envoy will help you to win, to essentially provide your differentiated solution in the market more quickly and not have to worry about being slowed down by a lot of these barriers that I highlighted. So that gives you a little bit of background about the problem statement around why we decided to launch Envoy. And what I'd like now is for Jeremy, if you could talk at a little bit more detail as to how Envoy works for those in attendance.
And hey, Jeremy, before you dive in, I have a question from the audience. Scott, you've been talking really oriented toward healthcare IT vendors, and there are a few providers on the customer. And so is this solution optimal for providers as well, or how should the providers in the room be thinking about that?
Oh yeah, good question. So, we originally, when we set up this webinar, we thought we'd have mainly healthcare IT organizations who are going to be attending. So that's why I'm speaking that way. However, the solution is used already by healthcare IT vendors. It is used by providers as well. So it can be used by any of the stakeholders that are trying to build solutions in the healthcare ecosystem. The words that I shared around the benefits that healthcare IT vendors would get, providers would get similar benefits, slightly different things. When you think of maybe they're not building the applications in all cases, but they are essentially needing to find how to connect all these different applications from third parties. They're going to have the staffing issues and challenges that I highlighted. In business continuity, they're going to run into all the security issues. So everything's going to be very applicable. I would just explain it slightly differently to tailor it right to the needs of providers. But it is something, the solution we provide today is usable for healthcare IT vendors. It is usable for providers. As I highlighted, and Michelle, as you know, we definitely have customers in both those segments already on the Envoy solution.
Awesome, thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, and I'll actually try to bring up an example of that in a minute here. So, we spend a lot of time at Lyniate talking about and focusing on our mission of building connections for a healthier world. And we really mean that because we believe in the power of data. Whether you're a provider or you're a payer or you're a health IT software company, we want to give you the right data at the right time for the right users, because we know that with those innovations, you can create healthier populations. And so I'm going to talk about just a couple of simple examples here to highlight where Envoy solves the problems that Scott solves, the challenges that Scott spoke about earlier. So a simple example here would be a health IT software company that has a really innovative product, but needs to both receive and send data to its provider customers. And many of its providers will be using different clinical and revenue cycle systems. Each one of those clinical and revenue cycle systems may have different formats in which they natively send out data. There may be different connection methods that need to be used to exchange that data. And all of that, as Scott pointed out, creates enormous complexity for the software developer that just wants to make their product the best it can be to introduce better workflow for clinicians or more complete information for those who are working in the revenue cycle office. So what the Lyniate Envoy solution does at its core is it takes all of that variation coming from different data sources and different formats of data, and it standardizes that so that our software company can receive the information in one format, and when it needs to send data back to the provider system, it can send data in one format. So what we do in the middle there, where it says reliable connectivity, we do the standardization both directions. We take variation, we make it standard, we take standard messages when they need to be custom tailored to different systems, and we tailor those appropriately for those systems to write the data back in. And so, if we move on to the next image, there are, as most of you know in healthcare, we've got a proliferation of different data standards that have emerged over the years. And as Scott said, they've gotten better and better. When my dad asks me, why is this so hard in healthcare? Tell me why this is so difficult, right? I go to one provider and then I go across the street, and often within the same provider system, they're using a different set of software tools, and so they don't have my information. And I remind him that we are talking about the most complex data set that we know of on Earth, right? How to describe the human body and everything that can go wrong with it. So as these standards evolve year over year, they get more complex, and different software developers learn to adapt and extend those standards. Well, that then contributes to more and more variation, variable data structures, variable transmission methods. So again, what we do with Envoy is we take all that complexity on the left and we turn it into standards that our customers can consume. And what that often means is using FHIR, because FHIR has evolved so rapidly in a short period of time and has become such a powerful way of storing and representing and transmitting data. And then sometimes when FHIR isn't adequate, we'll create a custom JSON object, a custom web service for the trading partners who need to exchange data. So all of that works really well and can support bidirectional data exchange. The other thing that we've realized with Envoy is to be truly useful, it has to cover the full spectrum of integration. It's not just the transformation of data from one format to another. That's a core part of it. But there are often tough design decisions that have to be made, compromises that have to be accommodated, or sophisticated loops or programming decisions that have to be made just in the data exchange so that the recipient can get all the data they need to power their digital health solution. So from design all the way through upgrades of the source systems and upgrades of our software that powers Envoy, we take care of it end to end, through the development process, all of the testing that's necessary, monitoring those interfaces, making sure that nothing is dropped, ensuring that that connectivity is robust and resilient. And that's actually a good segue to the security comment that Scott made earlier, which is that nothing matters, none of this matters if you can't secure the data, right? And so we take a multifaceted approach to ensure that our customers benefit from industry standard security, both at rest and in transit. As a global company, we deal with security regulations that differ all over the world. And so we have focused on the ISO 27001 standard, as well as SOC 2, to demonstrate, to prove our Lyniate's security methods and approaches and tool sets, so that we can produce that evidence for those certifications. And then we adopt different technologies that make sense given the nature of that end-to-end solution. So many different types of encryption may be appropriate for sending data, and then we make sure that when data is at rest within our systems. So for example, lots of interface solutions will have us store a message for a short period of time to ensure that it was transmitted and received properly by the receiving system. Well, when that message is stored, when that data is stored, we need to make sure that it is secure, that it's within a hardened infrastructure, that it's encrypted. So we apply all of those technologies to ensure that our customers can sleep easy at night, knowing that their data is protected.
And hey, Jeremy, there's a question that came in about how does Envoy reduce the cost and effort of integrating a solution with healthcare providers, which I think is really, the points you were just making. But to directly answer the question, it's really using these things to reduce that overhead for the vendor, or how would you say that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Michelle, or whoever asked that. I'm glad you passed that along, because Scott talked about the staffing challenges that almost every technology company is facing today. And but on top of that, you have to know what cloud infrastructure to license or deploy. You have to know what are the best tool sets for ensuring security of the data in transit and at rest. You need to know how to configure your interface engine or your API gateway or a combination of the two in order to make sure that you're getting your messages routed appropriately from the source to the destination and then back again. So all of those complexities add up. I was actually talking with a colleague in Lyniate the other day who was talking about a provider that has been using a Lyniate product and really happy with it, but they're now having trouble with staffing. It's a mid-size specialty provider organization. They have some challenges with ensuring staffing 24/7, and they're looking at the cost of their cloud infrastructure that they use to host that Lyniate integration engine. They're looking at the cost of the team to maintain the infrastructure, the team to maintain the integration engine, and they're thinking, boy, maybe it would be easier and actually less expensive for us as a provider to outsource the end-to-end responsibility for those integrations, for those interfaces between our systems to Lyniate. Because Lyniate has teams that provide 24/7 coverage, and we we have expertise in managing the cloud infrastructure. So those are ways in which we help our customers reduce their costs by essentially taking the problems that would cost them more to solve on their own and making it less expensive to solve in bulk across our whole customer base.
That's awesome. Actually, Scott, that raises a question. I'm sure we have several customers on the line and thinking about that option to move to Envoy. But is there any plan to migrate CorePoint and Rhapsody customers to Envoy, or really just it's an option and can augment?
Yeah, before I answer that, Michelle, if you don't mind, I'll go back to what Jeremy just answered and add one additional thing. Yeah, so Jeremy highlighted, I think, Jeremy, you did a great job talking through the high-level benefits around the staffing, and did a great job talking through an example of the provider. I'll go one step further for a healthcare IT vendor as well to just round out what Jeremy shared. And I think any of you on the phone that's been in an organization where you're building applications, every company I've been in, my background's a software developer originally, and we always had to maintain these repositories of how to interface with every other system out there. And I can tell you that, it seems maybe trivial at first, but the reality is if you're trying to deploy your products into many different of your customer environments, I guarantee that those systems are very different in all those different environments. And it's not just the EHRs, it's all of the other systems that you have in play. Even with EHRs, you have different implementations between the different customers that you have. And so every company I've been in where we're building applications, we inevitably have this portfolio of here's how to integrate to this version of this application, and this is how we did it at this customer site. And if you're a healthcare IT vendor, when you're getting started, that's a really big problem to try to figure out. Even when you're mature, maintaining that is obviously very cumbersome and complex. So there's a huge cost benefit by saying, gee, I don't have to go and figure out all the nuances. I don't have to go and figure out and spend all of our time on how do I connect to system A, to system B, to system C, to system D, and what are the nuances at this site versus that site. And so I just round that out because I know for all of us, we've been in healthcare IT building solutions for different needs over the years. And that's one of the key challenges we've always faced. And I just think of this repository of versions of interfaces you've had to create and maintain. It's just a lot, and it's not the area in which I think of the applications we've built over time. It's not where your focus is, and it just takes up a lot of time and effort. So I just want to add that, Michelle.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Scott. In fact, you and I were talking earlier this year with one of our customers that has it's a health IT vendor that's been around for decades, has probably 1,000 or 2,000 hospitals using its software, and they're coming out with a new product, and they don't want their product team and technical team to have to worry about the provider data integration, right? So we're helping them manage through that. We're providing the integration support so that they can focus on the workflows that their clinical software will improve for their providers, and they can focus their limited engineering resources and product resources on making their software product as great as it can be.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
And Michelle, I'll go back to your question then. That last question you asked was around, if I understood correctly, the question was around if existing Lyniate customers will migrate to Envoy. Did I get that right?
Yes, and if we'll ask them to.
Yeah, I got your head nodding, so that's
you got
good,
my head nod. I know you did here.
Yeah. So yeah, we obviously have a very large installed base of customers on our flagship products, the CorePoint and Rhapsody integration engines, we certainly can have customers who move from those products to Envoy, and so that is something we have customers that talk to us about that. I think Jeremy just highlighted an example of a provider that used one of our products for years and is realizing that they're not looking to maintain the expertise anymore internally on how to maintain all of these different interfaces, and they're asking to move to Envoy so we can handle it for them. So It is an option for customers if they have CorePoint or Rhapsody today. They can move to Envoy and give more of the responsibility to Lyniate to handle their interoperability needs. We're not making it a mandatory thing by any means. We're not telling customers that they need to go there. If they have all the expertise and knowledge and capabilities built up, we're perfectly fine with them to continue to do that. We just recognize that more and more customers are coming to us and saying, gosh, we have this person who's out, they're trying to take vacation, we can't even cover our interfaces, or this person left our company, we didn't expect it, we have a big gap, we can't keep our workflows running, can you fill in? And so we start seeing a lot more of this necessity and demand coming from our customers. So it is an option for our customers, but not a necessity for them to have to switch from their current on-premises or current deployment of Rhapsody and CorePoint to Envoy.
Yeah, Scott, and I think that those decades of experience that we have in serving providers, serving payers, serving healthcare IT software companies, serving public health departments across the United States, HIEs across the United States. That experience is what ultimately sets us apart, right? We know what works and we know what doesn't. We know what is worth investigating to push the envelope a little bit, and we know what isn't going to be a viable path. And we apply that experience every day. We believe that from any valid source to any valid destination, regardless of the format, we can get the data to where it needs to be. If we can't do that, nobody else is going to be able to do it, right? I mean, we've got all the knowledge, we have all the experience with all of the standards, and we'll leverage those standards in the best possible way to produce a solution. And then as our customers start expanding globally, some of our customers obviously are international customers, but in the United States, where some of our customers are looking now to expand, just this month in May, we've had 4 of our US-based customers ask us to help them expand outside the US, in Australia, in Canada, in the UK, in a couple of EU countries. So we've got the global scale to support them, and that's really exciting for us when companies that have developed and proven great solutions realize, hey, we can take the benefits of this and bring healthier outcomes to people around the world. We're so excited to support that.
Michelle, more questions?
More questions, yes. There is a question from the audience. Is there a product component to Envoy? I know we've talked a lot about the service aspect, and one of the participants is asking about the product piece.
Yeah, so maybe I'll start, and Jeremy, I'll have you add a few more details to it. But clearly the solution that we're describing here for Envoy, we view it as a service we provide. The service is provided through a combination of our technologies, the technologies we have from our flagship Rhapsody and CorePoint products that we can leverage within a cloud-based environment that we manage. And then we have the services capabilities around it, our expertise, the people that we have on staff that can do all the interfacing work that you need. On top of that, when you think of software components, maybe the question that's coming in then is a little bit about how you can see insights into data flows or things happening to the system. So Jeremy, you want to talk a little bit about that capability?
Yeah, absolutely. So because, as Scott said, we're using Lyniate technology to support the Envoy service, the core of it is Rhapsody, the integration engine, and Rhapsody has pretty sophisticated monitoring capabilities. And so one of the things that differentiates the solution is giving our customers a view into that monitoring set of features within Rhapsody. We're also, as an adjunct, we're developing for our next release of the Envoy solution, we're developing some higher level sort of business-oriented dashboards. Where are your transactions coming from and going to? What are the counts and percentages of different types? So how many ADT messages are you getting from different provider organizations that you're connecting to? How many different discrete patient records are you exchanging? Those kinds of high-level business metrics that we believe will be very useful to complement the more detailed level monitoring that our customers want to be able to keep tabs on. That doesn't take away from our responsibility to also monitor. We take very seriously our responsibilities in Envoy as a fully managed solution. We're going to be monitoring for errors. We're going to be performing maintenance where it's necessary. We'll be troubleshooting. We certainly expect to identify and solve those issues before our customers have an opportunity to even notice them. But we give our customers, using the tool sets that we've developed, we give our customers visibility into that. So those are some of the product features there. Michelle, was there a follow-up question to that?
You talked about any tooling to help accelerate development. That's really what you're speaking to at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing is that the other tooling that we have is that we can provide to, and we do provide to our customers, sample message types and message structures so that they can develop their systems. They could, for example, expose an API that we would call to transmit patient information or an administrative transaction. We can give a data structure and sample data so that our customers can develop their own tooling based on a reliable message structure that they know they will receive consistently from us. So those are other tools that we have available to help our customers accelerate their own development. And then going back to the fundamental premise of Envoy, when our health IT software developer customers, when they go to their new clients, additional providers, additional payers, we make sure that the data coming from that new provider or that new payer looks exactly the same when it hits the software vendor, looks exactly the same as it did from their first and second and third customers that they integrated with.
So they don't have to code differently to support different customers.
Exactly. And we have customers, to Scott's point, we have customers that now we're up to 50 or close to 100 different clinics or other provider organizations that they're exchanging data with daily, coming in all sorts of different formats, but when it gets to our software vendor customer, they're getting it in one consistent way so that they have one code base.
Nobody's asked this question yet, but at my prior company, I know that one of the hurdles to getting going with a new customer was VPN connectivity. Are people still using VPNs, or can you talk? I know we have some talking points about that.
Yeah, sure. We know that in healthcare, as we talked about, it's so important to ensure the security of data. And VPN technology has been around for 3 decades or more now. And certainly as transmitting data over the public internet has become more and more prevalent, the need to secure that data is more and more important, given the value of data to bad actors, value of healthcare data to bad actors. So VPNs are something we have a tremendous amount of experience with, and for our customers, we almost always set up redundant VPN tunnels so that there's reliability and high availability for those VPNs. The other thing is that we've started to deploy with some recent customers sort of a next generation solution that's called a software-defined WAN, a software-defined wide area network. That provides a little bit more simplicity in terms of the deployment, less troubleshooting, and the same or even better security and reliability. So we've got different approaches, and in fact, we can mix and match SD-WAN capabilities with VPN tunnels. So lots of different approaches there. The key benefit for our customers, though, is we take care of those VPNs, right? For a customer of ours that came to us last month and said, okay, we have over 200 providers we need to connect to. Lyniate, how will you help us manage those 200 plus VPN connections? We have a solution, right? And so we're working with them on scoping that out and determining where we would roll out first, what the cost would be, how we can make it most reliable, and support their solution.
And then, Jeremy, can you talk a little bit more about how we achieve high availability and resiliency of Envoy?
Yeah, sure. So some of that is actually this diagram you have up. Some of that is contained within there, even though it's about security. So we've deployed our solution in AWS, and we have a team of engineers that focus. We actually call them site reliability engineers, because the goal is to ensure that the infrastructure and the software that's running on top of that cloud infrastructure is reliable, that it's secured, that it's redundant, and that it can be regenerated almost at will within seconds when necessary. So we've built in redundancy from the ground up and security from the ground up into into the Envoy cloud infrastructure, so that our customers have the assurance that their solution will stay up and that those transactions will be reliably maintained. Yeah, looks like we got a bunch of questions coming in. Scott, you want to add to that at all?
No, that's okay. I was just going to follow up. There was a question that did come up before when you were highlighting the visualization and how with Envoy customers can see things that are happening within the solution. So things that Envoy is delivering around the interoperability. Do you want to just go back and just reiterate a little bit around what sort of visualization will be available to customers around that?
Yeah, sure. And we don't have any screenshots here. I apologize for that, but we can certainly follow up with anybody who's interested in seeing some examples of that. But essentially, it's a high-level view into the transaction counts of different types as they're moving through Envoy, so that if you want to check at any point, or you even want to look and see, hey, we expected this transaction to come from this provider at this time, but it didn't come in. Why is that? Did it actually come from the source system into Envoy? So we'll provide those kinds of inspector tools, essentially, so that you can look and see the data that's running through. Most of our customers really are counting on us at Lyniate to do that management and monitoring. But there are certainly times where it would be nice as a customer to be able to take a peek under the hood and see whether the lines are flowing the way they should be, or whether there's a message that got caught up somewhere. And in that case, you've got the ability to do that.
Thanks, Jeremy. And I know, Michelle, as you've been talking through, we've been giving some examples of some of the workflows we provided. And I know that we made reference to Fire along the way. Obviously, a lot of traction around Fire. So in prepping for this, we also did create one slide that we would share around a customer use case already that we've deployed within Envoy, particularly around Fire, just to give customers an idea, those listening as well, to understand maybe something that a customer has already done with us around Fire and Envoy. So Jeremy, if you'd like to just walk through this use case that I just popped up, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important for us at Lyniate as interoperability leaders to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to deploying integration technologies in the best way possible. And so this is just an example of a setup that we've created for one of our customers, where the customer is taking advantage of the fact that many of their providers that are their clients have Fire servers in their environments that they're able to connect to. And so what we did is we worked with our customer, which is a clinical decision support application, and we set up a series of integrations that would take the differing Fire versions coming from different source applications, EHRs and other source systems, and convert that into the software company's proprietary data model. This is a company that has a worldwide presence and that has been working in healthcare for decades. And so they developed internally and have deployed in a robust manner throughout their company. They've developed their own clinical data model. So what they needed is to be able to take varying FHIR structures from different providers and convert those different FHIR structures into their common clinical data model. So we've got a whole bunch of activity going both directions. I won't read all of the lines on the slide because you can read them yourself, but essentially it's a solution to create that standardization. So whereas in the first slide we showed, it was a fairly straightforward integration where a couple of HL7v2 messages or a couple of simple data formats being translated into a simple JSON object or to a standard FHIR resource. Here, it's sort of that solution, but on steroids, where you've got lots of different formats, lots of different structures, lots of different providers, sometimes data coming in as FHIR, sometimes coming in as a CCD or a CCDA, all being converted into that common clinical data model that our customer needs so its own applications can function and provide the features that its clients have come to expect.
Thanks, Jeremy. I think it's helpful just to give an example like that. I mean, there's millions of different use cases in healthcare around integration and interoperability. So I thought I'd just highlight that one because you've been referencing FHIR a little bit. So I thought that'd be a good one for us to share.
Yeah, I think it's also a good reminder that FHIR as a standard in healthcare has evolved pretty quickly, and we've made huge strides because of the devoted effort from so many people in the ecosystem toward enabling a common web services data exchange platform or method, but it's still really complicated. And when you have a proliferation of data sources and lots of different companies serving lots of different stakeholders, you're going to have differing implementations. And we have that in FHIR. It's inevitable. We've seen it in every other healthcare data exchange standard. And we expect to continue to see it in FHIR. And so our goal at Lyniate is to stay ahead of the curve, to be those FHIR experts and help you take the best advantage you can of FHIR as an emerging interoperability tool. What else do you have, Michelle?
Yeah, can you highlight the differences between sort of the core point and Rhapsody solutions and Envoy?
Sure, Scott, do you want to take that?
Sure, yeah, I can take that. So essentially, CorePoint and Rhapsody are flagship integration engine products. And the key difference between them and Envoy is that a customer will buy either CorePoint or Rhapsody from us. They will then identify the infrastructure that they need to run that solution. They will need to then deploy it and maintain that infrastructure. So think of like your operating system, your security patches, your upgrades, all that sort of thing. And then you essentially build your interfaces. So you use the tooling within those products through user interfaces to build up how you integrate different solutions, different applications and how you route data and how you set up the rule set and transformation between different data formats needed for the different systems. And so you would have a team like an IT team traditionally who would manage, the infrastructure. They'd have cybersecurity responsibilities. Probably have a team of engineers responsible for implementing your interfaces and managing them. With Envoy, you essentially, the big difference is it uses the underlying integration engine technology capabilities that we have, but we also take all of the service responsibilities for the infrastructure, as well as all the interface development, management, troubleshooting, and ensuring that it gets the best performance possible. So essentially, a customer would then not have to have that responsibility like they do today if they deploy Rhapsody or CorePoint themselves.
Perfect, thanks. I think I'll just double check the Q&A panel here, but getting close to the top of the hour and it looks like we have fielded everyone's questions, so super interactive. Is there anything that you all don't feel like the audience is just missing out and we should tell them? I feel like we've been pretty comprehensive, but Scott?
I have one thing I would just add. I mean, obviously, we explained, you've seen on the screen, things that we have as an organization, from technology to great customer service and expertise in healthcare interoperability and workflows. The thing that I always share, I mentioned at the very beginning, is that interoperability is not easy, it's not trivial. And what I would want to share is that, whenever we work with a customer, we always try to understand their problems. So if they're looking to leverage Envoy, we're going to understand their problems, their workflows, what are they trying to accomplish, understand the systems, the data involved, and really talk through how we might be able to help them. There are cases where the data is just not available through those third-party systems, and you're trying to work with those third-party systems, and it's not available. And we'll essentially be really upfront and honest, share that with our customer, so that you're not misled or they're not misled as to what's possible. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would add on that we didn't talk about, is that as an organization, we do have a lot of expertise in healthcare interoperability. Doesn't mean that we have some we have some really cool capabilities, but at the same time, there's going to be things that we can't even solve because of what third-party systems can support. So I would just share that, and recognizing you're going to talk to us, we're going to have an open dialogue, really understand your workflows and your needs, the systems involved and the data involved, before we propose how we go about solving that problem.
Great. Anything else, Michelle?
Yeah, there's one other question. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer, but you two are the experts. Can we discuss any integration from Envoy to Microsoft Teams?
Oh, sure. I can take that because some of my colleagues that came from Datica were involved with Microsoft doing some of the foundational work integrating Teams with different clinical systems, EHRs and other source systems. So Microsoft, as many of you know, has invested a lot over the last couple of years in making its tools applicable in healthcare, and they see Teams as a tool that can be used for care coordination and messaging and communication within care teams. So there are APIs that can be used that are available from Teams for data exchange, and we've done some work with Microsoft on that in the past. So if that's something you're interested in exploring, we certainly can do that, and we will just need to, as Scott said, understand your specific objectives, who your users are, what the required data flow is, because there's nothing that's plug and play. We'll want to make sure that we solve your specific challenge and your specific workflow needs.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for the really interactive Q&A. Thanks for coming to our launch party. I want to remind you again of the housekeeping points I mentioned. We recorded the webinar, and our team will email that out to everyone within 24 hours. If you have any questions, visit our .com, our website, or email lyniateenvoy@lyniate.com. And we look forward to working with y'all. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for joining. Appreciate it.